constituency, I'm trying to start a mobile library because my constituency is made up of 128 villages, so we can't really build a library in every village. So I thought that if we started a mobile library system, then we would be able to go from village to village. When I was in England in the 1970s and early 1980s, I lived in a little village outside Oxford for a few months. And during that time, I got to appreciate the mobile library system. Every couple of weeks, I think it was every Thursday fortnight, this little van would come, and we had to wait at a particular place where it would stop, and they would have a selection of books, not of course, not too many, because it all had to fit into the van, but you could always put in a request for the books that you wanted, and they would bring it the next time they came. I noticed also that I was the only regular customer, so I don't think the villagers were that fond of reading, but still I was waiting there every fortnight, and so they treated me as a special customer and always got me the books I wanted. It was a very good system, and I would like to introduce this to our constituency, to my township, and if that works out, I would like to introduce it to other townships as well, so that as many of our people as possible will have access to books, and they will learn to use libraries. You have to learn how to use libraries before you learn to enjoy reading. And also, we are trying to renovate Rangoon University and to revive it as a vibrant campus for undergraduates. So anybody who's interested in helping in that project, please get in touch with my personal assistant, Dr. Aung, who's somewhere around. Where's she? There she is. And if you would like to get in touch with her, if there's any way in which you might like to help, of course financially it's always welcome. It's the easiest way in which you can help, but there are other ways in which you can help, with services, with suggestions, with helping us to link up with institutions which might be interested in helping us in our project. So it's not just the libraries. We would very much like to make the Rangoon University Library the kind of institution of which Thaw Kaung has been dreaming of for the last 6 decades.
Yes. I don't know whether it's time for questions. We want to give some time for questions. There's only one professor that Suu does not want to answer about politics. Is it so?
Sorry, I don't mind answering any sort of questions.
Okay then.
But of course, I don't think it would be quite right to concentrate on politics at a literature festival.
So please, any questions on literature that you would like to ask Suu? I think we can spend about maybe 15-20 minutes. Yes.
I'd like to ask a question about the role of literary festivals now in Myanmar as it is. I understand there's quite a tradition in your country of literary talks, organised obviously by the authorities. What is the benefit of this kind of event which brings in outsiders as well as Burmese writers? Is it a useful kind of format, or are there other ways it should be developed, or how would you like to see it?
I think this is a very useful format. Of course, this is the first literary festival of this kind that we've ever held, so we'll have to learn from this. We won't know exactly what we're going to get out of it and how much, and there may be lessons to be learned from it. There may be things that we want to change for the future, but we have to start somewhere. And I think this kind of festival that gets in people from all over the world is very good for our society, which is just beginning to open up. And we need to be open to as many different trends and influences as possible, that we might be a broad-minded society.
Hello. Apart from Hilary Mantel, what other books do you have by your bed at the moment?
Well, I always have one simenon. That is just to keep my French up. And because I'm rather fond of Inspector Maigret, because he's fond of his food and he's fond of his wife. And I think he's got his priorities right.
Dulce, you mentioned that these days you read poetry a lot more than novels. I just wondered which was your favorite poem of all time, for reasons of, not for political reasons, but for reasons of beauty.
It's difficult to say which is my favorite poem, because of course it keeps changing. For example, I was introduced to Tennyson through some of his worst poems, so I didn't enjoy him at all. But it was Ulysses which made me, his poem Ulysses, which made me really appreciate Tennyson. And then I started reading some of his poems again. And there are many that I like very much, but I cannot say he's actually my favorite poet. Well, Shakespeare is always there. He may be a playwright, but his poetry is beautiful. And but the first poem that I committed to memory was Yeats' An Irish Airman Foresees His Death, which is, again, not to say that Yeats is my favorite poet, but it's difficult to say this. As you read more and more, you enjoy poetry more and more, and you admire so many more than you did when you were younger and you thought that only a few poets were worth reading.
Hi, I'm a student from the International School of Yangon, and I would like to know which book has been the most inspirational to you out of the thousands that you might have read.
I think I mentioned this earlier, that Victor Hugo's Les Miserables has been most inspirational because it talks basically about two kinds of revolutionaries, the socio-political revolutionary, that was Enjolras, and the spiritual revolutionary, that was Jean Valjean. And the difference between the two kinds of revolution, the revolution of the spirit and the revolution, the social-political revolution, I found the contrast very interesting, and there is so much to think about throughout the book. So the books I like best are the ones that give me the most to think about.
Madam? Sorry.
Mother Suu, I'm a student from Myanmar Maritime University. As you know, that in our high school we have to learn these stories, but most of the students don't feel that they're reading the story, but rather they feel learning something to pass the exam. So, what would your suggestion be to the teachers and the young students?
Do you think you could repeat your question a little bit more slowly?
Yeah. We have to, in our subjects in high school, we have to learn the short stories and others, but most of the students don't feel that they are reading the poems or the novel or the short story, but they feel that they are trying to learn as their subject to pass only the exam. That's a problem. So what would your suggestion be to the teachers and the young students of our country?
Are you trying to say that students look upon stories and novels that they have to study in class as work rather than as works of literature? Is that what you are trying to say? Well, I have to confess that when I was very small, we used to have what we used to call English text and English composition. Text meant little stories and little extracts from novels, and composition was grammar, basically. So we had two kinds of English lessons. And the book for the English text, which was made up of short stories and extracts from longer books, I would read them all before school started, because I thought it was fun. So I think basically it's not just the teachers. Of course, the teachers can inspire the students to love the books and to love reading and to take an interest in the stories. But basically, I think the students must be taught to master the language. If they have not mastered the language, they will not be able to enjoy reading. It will be a struggle for them. For them, each sentence would be a minefield through which they have to fight in order to get to some sort of meaning. And that would not help them to enjoy their work at all. But I was fortunate in that I was able to cope with the language. So I enjoyed reading at a very, very early age. So I would say to teachers that basically they must make sure that their students are able to read well enough to enjoy what they are reading. If reading for them is just a struggle, they will never love books.
We are a bit running short of time, but 2 more questions.
Okay, good afternoon.
Yes, Madam, thank you for this fascinating, inspiring talk. My question for you is, if you were to write the story of Myanmar in the last year and a half, would you choose to write a detective story or poetry?
Oh, poetry, without a doubt. I hope that our nation will be a nation worth writing poetry about.
During your